Hey everybody, welcome back to Outdoor News Radio. Rob Drieslein is with you here for another segment. We are going to have Tim Lesmeister with us a little bit later in the show. We'll also have Joe Hank from Lake of the Woods to talk a little bit about the forecast for fishing opener on the big border water up there. I want to take a hard right turn and discuss a totally different topic other than fishing here for one segment and talk a little bit about mushrooms. 'Tis the season. A lot of people thinking about morels, of course, but there's a lot of other mushroom opportunities out there. And joining me now actually by video, and I'm hoping maybe we'll post the video of me interviewing Kathy Yerich on our Facebook and our YouTube channel, so you can actually view this segment if you want. But she's joining me here for Outdoor News Radio right now. Did I have the name right, Kathy? Kathy Yerich from Forest Lake. How are you this morning?
I'm great. Thank you. That's perfect.
Yeah, thanks a lot for joining us. Now, you are the aunt of our video producer here, Abigail Hayner. Abigail Dupay is her name now. Mm-hmm. You're also the sister of Mike Hayner, like a gentleman I've known for many years, videographer out of the Brainerd area, works with the Linder clan up there. But in your own right, you are do I dare call you an expert, a mushrooming and fungus expert? You're active in the Minnesota Mycological Society, and I thought
Correct.
you'd be a fun interview here this morning.
Thank you. So mushroom people are really hesitant to call anyone an expert in mushrooms just because it's such a vast subject.
Yeah. It's a kingdom, right?
It is. It's a kingdom. I'm a self-proclaimed mushroom geek, and like you said, I come from a family that's really into the outdoors and hunting. They're doing turkey hunting and deer hunting. They're into, bow hunting and, of course, fishing. Our whole family grew up there was no vacation we went on that wasn't fishing. And I was more of the kid who would rather have been dropped off on shore and hunt for rocks and plants and now mushrooms.
Okay. Well, so the impetus, I guess, for this interview was Abigail shot a really cool video, which I encourage folks to check out on the Outdoor News YouTube channel. It's about growing your own shiitake mushrooms, and it's a fascinating video where you folks are actually inoculating, are they oak logs, with the spores of shiitake mushrooms so that you can grow these things. Tell us a little bit about that process. This isn't something that happens overnight. You actually, the logs, if I'm not incorrect, it takes them a year or more to actually produce mushrooms, right?
Yeah, I would say the hardest part of doing the shiitake logs is being patient and waiting a year for something to happen. And I had planned a bunch of workshops this spring to do shiitake log inoculation with some school groups and the Audubon or Osprey Wild Center up in Sandstone. And all of the in-person stuff got canceled. But of course, like you said, it's not an overnight thing. People had planned, like since back in February, the logs have to be cut when they're dormant, and they are living logs, which I think is most people's mistake. They think that they could just go find some logs in the woods, and buy some shiitake spawn and put it in. But there's just so many other fungi out there competing to eat these logs. The logs are actually the food for the mushrooms. So yeah, we had already gotten like 60 to 80 logs cut, and we felt like we had to make use of them. So we decided to go for it last weekend, and Abby
it looked like quite an assembly line you had cooking there. A shiitake, by definition or by name, seems to me, are they Japanese? Are they native to North America, or are these a circumpolar mushroom?
Yeah, they're not native here. So I like to tease when I show off the field guide. It's one of the mushrooms that's super edible that you won't find in the field guide because they're not native here. And they're imported from Asia, and there are lots and lots of different varieties. So you can order spawn that is meant more for a cold climate or meant for a warm climate, that fruits early in the season or late in the season. Lots of people like to try a bunch of different varieties so that they sort of have a longer season of picking.
Well, when do they pop? Are they a spring mushroom?
They are. So usually in the spring and the fall when it's sort of wet and cold. If it's a dry or warm season, you'll want to water your logs with a sprinkler. Like right now, I'm out there every morning with the hose, hosing mine down.
Sure. The one thing gave me pause is actually having to cut down live trees to create these. I'm one of those guys that doesn't like to cut down a live tree, especially a good hardwood like an oak or something. It caught my ear. I believe you said you could use buckthorn, which
Well,
I'm always looking for an excuse to cut buckthorn anyway.
that's the thing, we tried just a couple buckthorn logs, so we'll see what happens.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
kind of hopeful that that would be a great source because, like you said, we want to get rid of them, and I'm with you. I feel horrible to cut down a living tree. Lots of people who have lots of acreage and are managing it like to cut down some of the smaller trees
Sure.
anyway and be selective. So that's kind of what we're doing is working with either foresters or people who want to thin out some of the smaller
Okay.
trees. You can also, if you were trimming a large tree, use some of the upper branches. Um, we've used ironwood, and that's also an easy one. It's usually small, straight, hard. It lasts a little longer, so the shiitake don't eat it up quite as fast. But
Okay.
when I've had ironwood logs right next to oak logs, the mushrooms on the oak logs are just plumper, healthier, happier.
Okay.
It's really the preferred wood.
The hop hornbeam is another name for ironwood, and
Oh,
man,
yep.
you could eat up some chainsaws cutting through
Yeah.
that stuff is dense. What about will these hybrid poplars or these small cottonwoods? I mean, those are kind of weed trees. It seems like every few years I've got to cut down one of those anyway because they grow so fast. Will those work?
They'd be better for like oyster mushrooms.
Okay.
Oysters are like to grow on poplar, cottonwood, some of the softwoods. I do some maple tapping in the spring, and we have a bunch of silver maples that were popping up, and so we were thinning those out. And this year we tried Hericium, which is also called lion's mane. So that was another test we did, and in a year we'll find out if they worked.
Now, can you inoculate oyster mushrooms into, like I say, a cottonwood log or an aspen log?
Totally. People
Okay.
do not just the logs where we drilled the holes in them, but a lot of people do what's called the totem method. So you've got like a larger log and you stack it, kind of like put a layer. It's almost like frosting a cake. You put a layer of spawn on top, and then you put another layer of a log on it, another layer of spawn, and then cap it, kind of wrap it in plastic to keep it moist for 4 to 6 months. And then when you open it up, the oysters are going to spurt out the sides between the cracks of the giant logs.
Okay, this is Outdoor News Radio, and I'm Rob Dreesland. We're chatting with Kathy Yerich. Kathy, by the way, is the author of Mushrooms of the Upper Midwest, A Simple Guide to Common Mushrooms. The second edition of that just came out here this past February, huh, Kathy?
Yep. Yeah, I was invited to work on this field guide for our region with Teresa Morone, who has done a ton of different wild foods cookbooks and field guides. She did berries and weeds. She did a maple syrup book. It's a really popular local publisher called Adventure, and they're really invested in kind of sharing the wild of all over the country.
Sure, yeah. Stan Tequila, one of our other columnists here, of course, has written some books for that publisher. Kathy worked with Abigail Dupay here, one of our videographers, on a really great video explaining how to inoculate logs to grow your own shiitake mushrooms. And that video is on our YouTube channel, where, by the way, I think a video version of this interview with Kathy will also appear. Tell us how you got into mushrooms, Kathy. You were telling me a little off here before we got going here that your background is you've got an art degree. How did you become so interested in mushrooms to the point where you're actually growing them?
Well, I think all of us see things, especially with mushrooms. One of the things I see the most is people will ask questions, what is this and can I eat it? And there's just something about finding something in the wild and wanting to know if you can eat it, especially if you find something bright and colorful. But with mushrooms, it can be super, super dangerous.
Right.
I moved into my grandmother's old farmhouse about 15 years ago, and there's a giant oak tree that had a chicken of the woods on it, like so big that people would stop their car and ask if they could have it. And my grandma said they would always kind of laugh at people for for wanting to eat such a crazy thing. So when I bought her house, I was like, I'm going to eat that. But I was afraid, and I want to say I was 99% sure I knew what it was. I should have been 100% sure because other people had eaten it. But there's just something about mushrooms that are mysterious, and they are dangerous. You could actually kill yourself if you ate the wrong one. So I
They can
ended
wipe
up
out your liver, right? I mean,
exactly
that's an important organ. Yeah.
like toxins that if you were in the hospital probably could not be saved unless you had an organ transplant. So they're nothing to mess with. But I went to a Minnesota Mycological Society meeting, and they, some of the experts there, and I will call them experts. I'm not going to call me an expert, but helped me identify it and just really got me hooked. There's probably 10,000 species in our area, so it's tricky, and a lot of people get frustrated that they just kind of want, just give me the tips about which ones are poisonous and which ones are toxic, and I'll be on my way. But
It's not that simple. Huh? Yeah.
it's not. The trick is just keep studying it, stay interested, and only eat what you've identified with 100% certainty. And if that's 5 species, I think that's great. Then you know
Yeah.
what you're looking for in the woods, right?
Right. And one of those species, of course, is something that all outdoor writers talk about this time of year is the morel. Those are popping right now, aren't they?
Right now, they're so elusive. They're so delicious. I would say they're one of the easier ones to identify, but just one of the harder ones to find.
Right.
So
Okay.
the thing about morels is that they're always hollow. So if you cut them in half and find that they're hollow, that's the trick for those, to find that they're not the false morel.
Okay. Yeah, good. Kathy, it sure is a lot of fun chatting with you. I wish we could spend more time, but I encourage folks, check out this video that you and Abigail produced. It's very fascinating. And then if folks want more information on growing shiitake mushrooms, is there a good source that you? By the way, how much is one of those bags of spore? I gotta ask if
Yeah, about $20.
$20, not too bad.
And
Okay.
no, and that one of those larger bags does about 20 logs. Of
Okay.
course, we invested in the tools and stuff, but there are other ways to do it where you could buy, it's called dowel spawn, where you just tap it in with a hammered. I always, when I'm talking about shiitake stuff, feel like I'm a commercial for Field and Forest Products, but they're a Wisconsin company, and they're so helpful. Their catalog actually has a tree and mushroom species chart, so you can see like what could I grow on the trees that I have, and they sort of sell all the tools. If you called them to order something, you're not going to get a machine. You'll get someone who will talk to you and say, this is what we're happy with right now, and this is what's been working for us.
One more time, the name of that catalog was?
Field and Forest Products. So
Okay.
I think it's fieldandforest.net or
Okay. Yeah, just
fieldandforest.com.
Google Field and Forest Products, I'm sure, catalog. I'm sure folks can track it down that way. And then I would encourage folks to check out your book one more time. It's called Mushrooms of the Upper Midwest, A Simple Guide to Common Mushrooms. And they can learn to identify some of these fungi, huh?
Great. It's such a fun hobby. It's like if you're going to be out hiking or biking in the woods anyway, you're going to see some mushrooms, and then you're going to wonder what they are. So put the book in your back pocket and, start to learn about them.
And the Minnesota Mycological Society, do they have a website or something if folks are interested in getting involved with that?
We do. Yep, MinnesotaMycologicalSociety.org.
Okay,
And
perfect.
we're going to try to start doing some virtual meetings, but the woods are not closed.
That's right. That's right. Well, Kathy, thanks a lot. Great segment. Fun getting to know you a little bit, and good luck this spring.
You too. Thank you so much. It was great to meet you and talk to you.
Yeah, great. Kathy Yerich. Check out her book and look into the Minnesota Mycological Society. Let's get in a break. We will talk with Joe Henry. When we return, this is Outdoor News Radio. Well, Kathy, we're still recording the video side, but it's like I say, it's definitely a pleasure to meet you, and I'd encourage folks to check out that video. It definitely got me interested. I'm going to show it to my dad, and maybe this is a little project we will tackle. I didn't ask you during our radio segment, but is it something you need to do this time of year, or can you inoculate a log anytime during the summer?
I've heard you can do it in the fall, but it's about cutting the logs when they're dormant and then using when they're still fresh and
Okay.
full of moisture. So that's why we did it, even though the the stay-at-home ban hadn't been lifted, is that our logs were gonna go to waste if we didn't
Yeah.
use them. So
Gotcha.
yeah, it's a better spring thing for sure.
Okay, good. Well, Kathy, thanks a lot again for spending some time with me.
Thank you.
I
Thank you
think
so
the world
much.
of your whole family.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, they're good people. I'm fans of them too.
Go figure. Yeah. Okay.